Hi everyone, welcome to the ILA Kelp webinar. We are just starting now. Thank you so much firstly for joining, and today's topic is also something that is very, very important for the discussion and what we are going to bring for you. And without further ado, let me just start the discussion for the day.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Dr. V. Rangarajan from Chennai.
Hello, hello. Nice to see you.
Namaste to all. Am I audible to you?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Rajan, you're audible.
Good
So we
evening,
will
sir. Good to have you.
be having a discussion on based on questions initially, and then we will also open towards the end for questions, and hopefully we can share. You all will get to share your own questions as well on what your thoughts are, and if you have any inputs that you would like to present. So thank you so much for coming here to us today, and I'm just sharing my screen. Allow me a minute, please. Yes. Okay. I hope everyone can see the screen that's being shared.
Yes, Meenakshi.
So welcome to Kelp and ILA monthly webinar series. We are here standing in March 2025. Our topic for this one is breaking the silence, encouraging reporting of sexual harassment in workplaces. This is a topic that's close to all of our hearts and something that we all are thinking about constantly. So this presentation is brought to you by Indian Lawyers Association and Kelp. A little about Indian Lawyers Association and Kelp before I get into introducing the speakers and what we have in store for you today. Indian Lawyers Association, ILA, is a voluntary professional organization for the legal professionals in India. It has been formed to shape the future of legal profession throughout. And ILA is committed to enable opportunities for quality professional development, support the enhancement of equality in legal profession, and promote the delivery of justice, facilitate effective law reforms, and advance the rule of law throughout India. ILA aims to support by offering access to practical resources for legal professionals to help improve the administration of ethical codes and developing a professional network. So it also exchanges information between hundreds of ILA chapters nationwide. Kelp, from where I am also working from. Kelp is established in 2013 when the POSH Act came into being. It is a forward-thinking organization committed to revolutionizing workplaces into safe, happy, and inclusive environments, with an unwavering belief that employee well-being is integral to organizational success. Kelp endeavors to set new standards in HR practices and overall organizational performance. We are a pioneer in simplifying the legal complexities in prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. And along the way, we aim to demystify the less understood subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also are focused on bringing forward efforts in workplace safety, and we have opened doors now globally, and we are working towards creating safe workplaces everywhere, including US, UK, and some other countries. Now, today's panel discussion is hosted jointly by ILA and Kelp. The topic for today is breaking the silence, encouraging the reporting of harassment in workplaces. We have with us an esteemed panel with Sakshi Vats and Akshata Karangutkar. Sakshi is the Vice President of Revenue Cycle Management at GEBS Healthcare Solution, With over 23 years of experience in the industry, she specializes in streamlining revenue generation strategies, enhancing operational efficiency, and driving impactful results through a blend of strategy and innovation. Educated at the University of Mumbai and an alumni of Kimmins High School, Panchgani, Sakshi brings a dynamic approach to her work. Beyond her professional commitments, she's passionate about traveling, fitness, and advocating women's empowerment. Welcome, Sakshi. And we also have with us Akshata. Akshata Karangudkar has just taken charge as HR head at Aditya Birla Education Trust. She brings over 20 years of experience in the HR domain and has worked across different sectors and has been part of various HR reforms. She has worked with organizations like Samhita Social Ventures, Bank of Baroda Financial Services, Dainik Bhaskar Group, Ad Factors PR, etc. She's been a part of IC committees and has actively mentored students on various platforms. She's also a Wiki president, WICCI president for mentoring and soft skills counseling. She loves reading, writing, and blogging. Welcome you both. I've already met Sakshi and Akshata, and I would like to also extend my own little warm welcome to how insightful yet humble both of them have been through this process with me. And I am going to be your moderator for today. I am Meenakshi. I'm a lawyer and subject matter expert in POSH and DEI. I have been working in the fields of gender. I have worked as a criminal litigator for a while in courts. And I've been working as a POSH external member, trainer, and content creator since last 3 years with Kelp. So happy to be here and host this esteemed panel. Today's objective for our conversation is to create awareness around the importance of reporting and address the barriers that prevent employees from speaking up. Hopefully, we will also get best practices and strategies from our esteemed panel to foster a culture where reporting is encouraged and supported, highlight the role of leadership, HR, and internal committees, and also how to provide emotional and psychological support for those who are needed to report incidents. Finally, a little bit about the topic, why this matters. Currently, underreporting remains one of the biggest challenges in addressing workplace sexual harassment. From personal experience, we were discussing it a while ago also that we often hear that we have zero reported cases, and companies often make that statement and claim. But having zero reported cases is not always a great thing. It's possible that there is underreporting and people are not coming up and reporting cases of sexual harassment. In fact, having numbers of cases being reported means that people are aware and are looking towards actually getting that safety from their internal committees and the internal systems as well. Now, there are various reasons for underreporting: fear of retaliation, a lack of trust in the system, and societal stigma often silences victims. Transparent processes, psychological safety, leadership commitment, and confidentiality are a key to bringing and building a culture where employees feel safe to speak up. Encouraging reporting is not just about compliance, it is about fostering respect, dignity, and a truly inclusive work environment. Best practices need to be in place, and your training managers, your training should include training your managers and HR to take up complaints and handle with care, as they are the ones who are first people who receive the complaints. And it should definitely go to the internal committees, and cases should not be dismissed at the first step. And today's key discussion areas would be why employees hesitate, and some more insights on how we are going to build mechanisms and support systems and create a no retaliation culture. So that being said, I would like to kickstart the discussion. Would Sakshi and Akshata have any initial hellos to provide the participants? I'll allow for that space now.
Right. Thank you so much, Meenakshi. I think you very well summarized, why there is a need for the topic what we are discussing today. It's like nothing new, right? I mean, for the last 10, 12 years, there's a lot of discussion that is happening. But still, if you see the number of cases that gets reported are very few, which clearly says, there's something which is not happening right, or maybe there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I'm happy that, I'm part of this discussion. I'm also looking forward to learn from a lot of experiences people have. So my request to the people who are logged in is, if you have any specific, input, or if you have something to share, I think that is how all of us can take back together and do a lot of good work at our workplaces. So feel free to keep putting in, and Meenakshi will keep looking at the chat box. So happy to be here, learn and share my experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akshita. Very well put across. And Meenakshi, I think you've actually covered it all. Breaking the silence, we feel, okay, there is a posh committee, it is a tick in the box. But right now, it is not optional. It becomes more morally imperative for all of us. Only when we build a workplace which is out where we do not have harassment is a place where everybody would want to be there. We are away from home. We want to be at a place where we feel more secure, more safe, and more dignified. And I guess breaking the silence is not just encouraging reporting, but outrightly having the leadership, the panel members, the government, everyone hand in hand working together.
Yeah. That actually brings me to think about how the law addresses retaliation. Do you think the POSH Act talks about retaliation in the sexual harassment of women at workplace?
Right. So Meenakshi, with the trainings and with the other things, the knowledge that I've gained, sexual harassment of women at workplace, which is Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, do represent all the advancement that we've done over the past years. We've seen every year there is something new which gets added, right? And this is pure play to go ahead and ensure that there is dignified work environment for women. But now talking in specific about retaliation, in a broader sense, there is nothing in specific that, they've come up with. But all that they've done is basically they've highlighted how protection through interim relief can come at a rescue for any of the complainant. Now, what they're really talking about here is some corrective measures to shield the complainant. How do we do that? Some of the options, and it is mostly at the prerogative of the company, of the employer, and the ICC company committee that takes the decision, where you can transfer the complainant or the respondent to any other department or probably any other location, change the shifts if there are shifts that they are working on. This is primarily so that the entire process then can continue at ease, and both respondent and the complainant can go ahead and talk about it freely, provide witnesses, evidences without any kind of influences. There are also options given like, leave with pay or without pay. There are garden leaves that are there. Now, this is again to ensure that at ease, the complainant is there back at home, probably not getting mentally or emotionally harassed with all that is coming in front of them, right? We are also restricting by monitoring the actions of the respondent. So if there are any undue, undue influence on the complainant, where there are influence on the performance review, there are changes to the daily task, there are any negative assessments or anything that is really hurting the complainant by any which way, there's a constant vigilance around that. So these are few of the tangible and immediate actions that can be taken by the law. Well, it just does not confine there. It is also talking largely about confidentiality. Now, the moment you keep confidential information within the gamut of the ICC members, within the gamut of the complainant, and this is largely spoken about in Section 16, that once you provide information to any party or anybody only on the need to know basis, also to ensure transparency, this will also prevent the stigma of social retaliation. Most often, the complainants do not come up and say, this is what happened. They come up and say, we are victimized, we are harassed, right? We want them to tell that this is not tolerable. This is not how we are supposed to be working in the workplace environment. Now, interestingly, the principle also talks about and underscores that the workplace should be harassment free. But in most cases, in my few of my experiences of my previous company and in my current company, I see retaliation is blatant. And mostly it is, in the form of retribution. There are discriminations done, right? There's also sometimes some unjustified workload which gets kind of shunned to the complainant, and this may be even on the pretext of business requirement. They are very subtle. You really do not know how to go ahead and how can you really point out or circle it out, right? At times you're simply excluded from the meetings, right? And you do not have any such concrete reason, or you do not get it. It's only with very articulative questioning, or probably, like I said, vigilance is what you'd be able to come up, or probably if the complainant is aware and is talking about it. There are also sometimes, if you're near the appraisal cycle or there are incentives which are given out, there are discriminations there. So these are causing a lot of detrimental, environment for the complainant. It's making the complainants very weak. Now, what can come at the rescue is the ICC committee and the HR, who are playing a very crucial role in these kind of complaints. The law mandates that the ICC committee and the HR should be working hand in hand. There should be fair, impartial investigations, which has to be done. And luckily at GEPS, I would tell you, the ICC committee is empowered to go ahead and take any kind of action, which are interim or immediate actions, just so that we can prevent any such kind of retaliation, any such kind of intimidation or harassment or discrimination. So these are few of the things that, the legal aspect it talks about. Of course, we are not really handcuffed. We will buy the HR policies or buy the POSH policies. We've made our policies very strong and we can still go ahead and put a halt to it, but maybe not in entirety. Like I said, sometimes, these are very humble alerts. There are no really sirens. There are no really red alerts that you get. The good news in all of it, I would say, like I said, the legislature is evolving, and so is also for each of our companies. We are getting matured in terms of our policies, in terms of the POSH cases, right? I have seen a refinement that has happened in the last 4 to 5 years that I've been the presiding officer of the company. Very duly and very eminently, there are members working around it. And we are also changing, making sure that there is no denial to justice. We also say, right, when justice is delayed, it's denied. So we are trying to make sure how we can fast track. Although the law says 90 days, we want to kind of make it quick, and make it quick, not in the haste, but make it quick so that the complainant feels they've been heard. They can voice their thoughts. They can have stronger protection from the company. And that's pretty much.
You're on mute, Meenakshi.
My bad. Thank you so much for that, Sakshi. I think you pretty much summed up a lot in the law. The question on retaliation, especially, is also something that adds that there was a recent, not recent, I think 2019 is quite far away from now. But 2019, there was a PIL filed whether retaliation is covered under Sexual Harassment Act, the POSH Act. And the court said that the scope of POSH Act is the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act is limited to things that are sexual in nature. So retaliation is not covered. However, the role of IC here is to ensure that there is no retaliation, and that is something that the Act talks about, that we need to protect our employees from retaliation. So it kind of brings in more responsibility to organizations, that now they have to ensure that there is no retaliation, because the Act doesn't really cover retaliation per se. But here I would like to, I think if there is anything to add, Akshata, to the legal part of retaliation, I would like you to add. But I also have a question for you, which focuses on this, that what role, how can organizations handle complaints in a way that balances this confidentiality with the need for transparency and action coming from an organization perspective? Because now we don't have retaliation covered under POSH Act. So how can organization help in that sense? So would you want to answer that?
Thank you so much, Meenakshi. I think thanks to Sakshi, I think the entire in the policy, whatever things you need to be knowing about, how retaliation can happen at workplace. I think everything she covered. Like how you said, Meenakshi, it's very true today. It is not covered. So a lot of times today in the policy context, unless you kind of document it, things are not taken seriously. So that is where I think the role of the organization, the role of the ICC comes into picture. Like how Sakshi said, it's like not like purely on, the timelines. Okay, there's a case registered and then you are like following a rule book. That definitely happens. But where ICC and the organization can take that extra efforts is to see a lot of times, the treatment to the complainant are very, very subtle. It can be in the name of a, business pressure, or it could be like, all of us are working. That is how we had to do it. But many a times, that the person has been clearly discriminated, and that will come into effect only when someone at the organization, it could be ICC committee or some senior leaders, are able to look at it. And I have seen a lot of cases in the last 10 years. It is done so subtly and beautifully. The person doesn't find it easy to go and report, because already there is a case, right? Already the person has complained. In addition, there is always the fear that will I be taken wrong, will it go against my performance. I think here is where the organization has to make it very, very clear. I'm not very sure if there is any specific law or guideline which talks about monitoring that, though Sakshi did mention, which happens, very unofficially. Maybe this is where the HR and the committee has to come together to see whether during this interim, whether the person is being treated right. Is there any kind of a, treatment that is going against or which is not right with the person happening. I think this is something we need to do very carefully. And also the thing you mentioned about confidentiality, so it's like a two-edged sword. One is you need to keep it very, very confidential, but if I have to ensure that the organization knows that we are taking these cases seriously, it's important that I also have to say that this has happened. So this is where, if you see organizations that have done well, what they have done is, first they have ensured that the confidentiality is kept in place. They never ensure they talk about the complainant or make it ensure that they talk about the person. But at the same time, if they are taking a call, they make it a point to tell the organization that these are things which is taken very seriously. This alone helps, because today I don't need to know against whom it has happened, right? I only need to know as an employee that the organization is very strict in handling these situations, these cases. That alone, I think, makes a lot of difference when organization keeps talking about this. And also when people join the first 90 days, I think they're clueless, they don't know what is happening. There is still a lot of settling that happens. This is where I feel HR and the organization comes to help the person understand that if any such thing happens, this is the committee. A lot of times, we do it as part of a policy where just, we talk about the posh policy, we talk about the committee. After that, I think nobody knows about it. So here is where a little more awareness about, why it is important to know the policy, take them, in detail about, what are things they can keep in mind, which can kind of be part of, the act. And if at all, if they have to reach out to, the first thing is they shouldn't be kind of lost as to whom to go to, right? So these are things I think the organization can do well, to let people know that there is a committee, and this is what happens when this is where they can go to. And also, if there are cases that has happened in the past without naming or without telling what happened, just telling them the severity or the kind of actions the organization has taken, that gives a lot of comfort to the employee. So this is something, even in my earlier organization, even in the current organization, I see a lot of stress in terms of awareness. So everybody knows. Today, it's not like people don't know, is there a POSH committee? Is there an ICC committee? Who's part of it? And that is another reason, if you see, the law also mandates that you put up these posters everywhere. So people don't feel lost in, series of your mail, the policy is sitting somewhere. I think it is clearly displayed everywhere so that I don't have to really take efforts to know whom to reach out to when I need. So that's something very nicely, which is done. And across organizations, if you see, these posters do help. And also there is, clearly confidentiality maintained. So I don't have to worry about, if I tell, will anybody come to know? So these are few things I think organizations have done and would continue to do to see that, people come and, report or at least reach out if they need support.
Yeah. I think that really brings out some best practices on how to create a safe space. Sometimes even a constant, like people are getting very innovative these days and they're constantly putting up like posters, digital communications wherein they are talking about these things. So one thing that I have also come across is that people often think retaliation is something that is limited to uh, just the complainant. Sometimes even respondents need that protection from retaliation. About that's the reason uh, we try to keep things as confidential as possible, and only, like Sakshi also earlier mentioned, that you have to disclose on a need to know basis. And also it is while we are communicating that we have a zero tolerance policy and we do not tolerate this kind of culture, we also need to be very aware of not doing example setting, because sometimes this happens that IC members want to terminate a person for a very small misunderstanding that must have come up by the complainant. And this is something that we should, I think that will go off track if I get too much into it. But to say that examples, how do we refrain from setting an example of an individual rather than communicating the culture that, listen, this is the kind of steps we will take if we see you doing something. There are also questions pouring in, which I will respond to. But I would like to now maybe put down the question to why there is a silence. So to bring to that to the highlight, what are the key reasons? This question is to you, Sakshi, and also
Yeah.
Akshita, you contribute. What are the key reasons do you think that employees hesitate to report sexual harassment, and how can an organization address these barriers? Because one thing I'm just giving an example that I've noticed in some cases, people come and say, oh, my husband got to know, or my family got to know. This is one thing. But there are many such reasons. So what do you think are the main reasons, and how can organizations help?
Right. So, I'm sorry, Meenakshi, right? There are a lot of reasons that we've realized and studied over the past few years, right? We've tried to address few of them, and few of them we are also getting very creative, just so that we have the employees take the courage, come and talk to us. A lot of it has been covered by you and by Akshita during our session right now. But the major problem is the fear of retaliation. I think it is at the pinnacle, because that's the reason why you would not really want to go ahead and report it. Now, why does that really happen? The reluctance is stemming from the complex interplay of the powerful people. There are personal fears that what if I say, and immediately the person gets to know. Of course, eventually the respondent would get to know about it, but till such time they are heard, what happens in that course of period, right? How will they be kept? Because most often this does not have across another department. Most often it is in the same reporting line as what we've observed. Apart from fear of retaliation, or which will cause them their career development, even termination at times, because there could be foul plays as well. This also stems from another fact: when the complainant feels that they don't have trust in the system. Because they don't have trust in the system or confidence in the system, all of these starts percolating on their mind, right? They also feel, like I had said earlier, social stigma, or probably they're coming from such background. There are cultural backgrounds that might not allow, because we still have people coming from various, there is a gamut of background that people come from. um they could also be feeling that, there is a confusion. Is this coming in the posh case? Will they listen to me? There are senior leaders who want to be sitting there. Will they dismiss what I'm talking? Will I have the courage to go ahead and talk? And sometimes there's also victim blaming that happens as a result of this, right? There are also colossal damages that we see where people just do not come up, or if they come up, they feel maybe what their peers are going to think about, right? And they do
Yeah.
not really want to stand up and really talk about it, because you see, we say it is confidential, but at times you'll have somebody to come and even console you. You feel it is out of the box, right? So that's another reason. Um, Again, yes, Akshita, you are very legal right. Sometimes they don't even know who's in the ICC panel. They do not know what route they're supposed to be taking. They feel the process is 90 days, 3 months, it might just take, and that's what lingers on their mind. So they're discouraged heavily over there. There are also sometimes some companies, with the Gen X coming in a lot of organization, we have an average age group of grade 5, which could be about 26, 27 years of age, right? So is this behavior normal, right? Am I to really not fit in the entire environment? This was already passed as a comment by some other person to another lady, and she was okay. But they don't realize it. She may be okay. I'm not okay with it. So that kind of confidence has to be built up with each of the employees with us, right? But again, all of these are, something that our systems can be tweaked. There are loopholes that can be identified, that can be addressed. Few of the best practices I would like to share that we are doing in GEPS, right? So that culture of trust, of respect has to be propagated, has to be advocated at all time. There has to be open communication. There has to be a very eminent, or a very starking um, presence which has to be given to the fact that if there is anybody who's getting into the pursuit of retaliation, they will undergo zero tolerance, of course, depending on the severity and after understanding the complete case. This also has to be a clear and very accessible reporting mechanism. Now, reporting mechanism earlier used to be you just write a handwritten letter and you send it across. But like I said, everything is evolving, everything is changing. So there are different ways that you can choose from, right? There are online systems, there are anonymous boxes. We also have a POSH committee, altogether a POSH office that we are maintaining, and I'll talk more about it going forward. Now, coming back to the reporting, it could be also as much as you're telling your manager if you do not know what to do. They can come forward, but we kind of discourage that because we do have our HR or our ICC panels who are accessible at all time. There has to be constant training, and it has to be at every aspect, not just awareness of POSH. Like Akshata rightly mentioned, if you are not experiencing it yourself, but you see somebody else experiencing, how can you go ahead and make sure that this is discouraged? If you are a manager or a newly promoted leader, at that time also there are instances where you do not know how do you handle these situations. This is when we come into picture by making sure there are training happening. I've seen a lot of organization. It's again, you just have to conclude the training once and for all, and you're in compliance. But the training has to happen round the year. Conduct something which is very different every quarter, and which is what we do. We have quiz competitions, we have role plays, we have these nuggets. We also have the screensavers that we have across for every member, whether they're working from home, they're working from office, whichever locations that they're working from. We have these danglers across mentioning how you can approach. There are caricature depictions as well. There are serious conversations that we have. We have a cohort of women where we talk about it, where we sense that in case if there are people who are hesitant, how do we go ahead and kind of encourage? Now, training, it's not just training that we're doing in terms of computer-based training, or we have trainings which are just recorded and kept there. We also, we've gone a step ahead along with the Kelp HR team, where we are doing role-based training. We are doing some kind of a theater-based where we can see there are dialogues happening in front of you. This is also just so that it's not only by and large the employees, but the ICC panel as well can be trained, can ensure that there are people who are feeling comfortable and they feel approachable, right? Again, maintaining transparency is important, and you rightly said it's a two-edged sword. You need to understand what needs to be kept highly confidential and what needs to go only to the parties who are supposed to know, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to set examples, you have to make sure that people do not go ahead and overrule it. The best thing that you can do, I also feel, is when you're lending support. So this person has come and complain, right? They're already into mental and social trauma. There are sometimes graver cases also. how you can give them guidance, and if in case if there are some kind of a physical, you know, physical damages or whatever that has been done, you can alternatively go to the police. You can keep counseling the person, even if there is a respondent who is behaving hysterical, right? You need to have good members into your system who can go ahead and handle these situations. This is very, very much of an importance. Of course, power imbalances would be there. How do you handle seniority cases are very much important, because sometimes it stems from there as well. Another thing that the companies can do is conduct organizational audits. So in our company, we do have a system of audits where we submit a dashboard with regards to what's happening in terms of training, in terms of cases, what are the feeler, what are the outcome of the surveys. All of it is captured there, and we kind of present it even to the board. Another thing that we've done with the help of Kelp HR, and you know, we've been into collaborations in the last 5 or 6 years. We've appointed one of the external members. So there are just not one, there are two members, so that we can have the continuity over there. Again, it helps us because with our experiences, it's only so much that we can really do at times. But then we do have these external members who support us from the legal perspective, which we might kind of, you know, overlook it. They help us, they guide us, and they make sure that at the end of the entire investigation and inquiry, we are being just. Senior leadership, you're right. You have to walk the talk, right? You can't just pray and pray that, you know, or do a carpet bombing saying that it is done, we've trained, and now people are supposed to be aware. If that had to be there, then we wouldn't have been talking right now. So every leader has to make sure that they are propagating and soliciting it, that at all times where it is necessary, to make sure that it is easily communicated and understood by people. Right. So these are few things, and I'm sure there are more things that we can creatively put together. We can get our brains together. We need to be talking to our middle management. We need to be talking to our senior management. That is, again, very important, along with the people who are the frontline leaders. Right. So, yes, that's how we can empower, we can protect, and we can address the issues. We can make sure people are coming out, people are talking. There is less of dependencies and more of people taking the onus, coming and talking for themselves. And that's very important.
Thank you so much for that, Sakshi. I think a lot of best practices, like they were coming in the chat, that what are the practices that people can take in, and how do you engage leaders into these conversations was very important. And also just a note that I also shared in the chat, because if the complaints are against very senior leaders or against managers, there is a fear of reporting. So if it's someone who outranks the entire internal committee, the complaint does not go to your internal committee, it goes to the local complaints committee that is established in your district. And it is a very important information that people need to have, because people are like, what will the IC do? I have had cases where the IC member in some companies has been part of the complaint. And like there was one IC member who actually was part of the complaint. And after this complaint was dismissed by him because he was a senior leader, he chose to become an IC member, and he made himself an IC member. So there was an instant fear of retaliation from, like, if the IC member is only someone people don't trust in, then how will someone come and report, right? So there are instances where power has been abused, but that is why the district office is there to check this power. There are appeal provisions. So you need to communicate to your employees that there are appeal provisions in place. There are these reporting mechanisms in place. Some people have anonymous reporting channels which ensure that your complaint will directly go to the internal committee and no middle management will get to know about it. And you can safely report. And that being said, I would like Akshata to bring in her expertise as a HR professional to also say, how do you engage your bystanders, like Sakshi was mentioning earlier, bystanders, managers, HR professionals, into the conversation of encouraging reporting, and how do you train them so as to they come into, is post training for employees enough? Do we need to train the HR managers, and how do we bring them into the conversation? So I think Akshata, that's over to you.
Thank you so much, Meenakshi. Before answering this question, there were 2 points, since there's a lot of very nice things which Sakshi said, which their organization is doing and Kelp is supporting. I think these are really amazing. So just one thing to add to this, what I feel, a lot of times when we look at the compliance part, I think we do all of this very well. Like most organizations today, they want to be compliant, right? They ensure that quarterly trainings happen, there are awareness sessions. Something what we forget here is to ensure that when we are talking about all these programs, we do it, sometimes it becomes a tick mark, right? You need to go back and talk to people and understand, within the organization. Sometimes, see, we are saying something, we're doing a lot of it, but do people really feel that? Do they feel encouraged to go talk about it? Today, what is the point? There are 10 programs I have done, and end of it, I don't have a single case. Or what is the point today if still teams have that fear to go back and report cases? So somewhere we need to look at how can we also see how the trainings we are doing and the kind of workshops we are doing are also supporting, and actually on the ground, is it making any difference? I think that's something which we will have to do, so that we know that it's not just on the paper. We are also building that confidence among teams, so that they know that there are teams to support and it is okay to voice. That's the first thing. And second, very important point which you made, Meenakshi, about this example which you gave, the person who there was a case against him and he came back. I think that's an amazing thing you mentioned. A lot of times, since the requirement is to have a senior person in the committee, they end up getting people who might not be worthy enough. This is something I have seen in my experience. A lot of times you have the committee who's not sensitive enough. Experience, definitely, I'm sure most of them have. Today, these needs a lot of sensitivity, right? Today, when I'm approaching an ICC member, that person should have that kind of a reputation within the organization. Can't be made an ICC member only because the person has spent, 20 years, or the person is senior most in the organization. Sometimes I have seen organizations where, they only look at these two, three things. Those are important for sure. But the most crucial thing is the person should be sensitive enough to handle these conversations. What is the point if the person doesn't have or lacks, the understanding of the subject, or is not able to handle the situation well? I think it is no point having that person in the committee, because people will never reach out to him. So that's an important point you made. So whoever is like, setting up the committee, these things they have to keep in mind. And coming back to the bystander thing, which you said, like today, if you see, we do a lot of training and lot of counseling to the girls at home, or the women. You shouldn't go at night, you should dress appropriately. Very few things we do to the boys, right? We don't tell the boys that you should, you should treat women right. We don't do a lot of sessions or training to them as to what are things you shouldn't do. Same thing happens here at a workplace also. We do a lot of posh training, which is amazing. But you see, I'll give you a simple example. I remember many, many years back, first when I took over as a head HR with one of the organization, when introducing, one of the business head told me, "Oh, there is this girl in the team. Uske against na do teen cases hai. Uska na there is a case against her. It is sorted now." This is how he introduced. Somewhere he was trying to create that in my mind, saying this is a problematic person. So here, what is needed is you need to ensure that, when you're doing training about POSH, you need to also sensitize employees as to how you need to handle these cases. The case is over, it's done, everything is back on track. Today, imagine after so many years, when it is not needed at all, the introduction to me from the person was, "Oh, there is this girl in the team. She had approached ICC earlier. Oh, case to khatam ho gaya, but I thought I should let you know." That was not required at all, right? So it is important that, when we are actually doing sessions awareness, we need to also sensitize employees. If you can't support, at least you should not go back and, discourage the person. Today, imagine if I have a case, and if the ICC committee is taking care, as a bystander or as a colleague, you should support. If you're not able to support, it's okay. At least you don't have to go and tell 10 people that, this is happening and I'm part of it. So that sensitization, I don't know today, if you ask me, is it happening? I really don't know. But we need to look at that aspect also, so that employees are, sensitive towards the person, even in the case of the respondent. A lot of times, till the time the case is closed, you still don't know, right? You can't look at the person differently, till the time the case is closed. So this sensitization, if you ask me, maybe I think Kelp does a lot of things. Maybe you may have to keep this angle also in mind. So people don't talk loosely and, distance the two parties, both of them. I would give a equal respect to both of them till the time the case is, completely closed. I think that is somewhere there's a need of the art to see that people don't talk and, make it like a very loose comment. That's something very, very important, I would say.
Yeah, much
Want to
need.
add, Meenakshi, Akshita, very well said, right? And the good bit here is, right, for the ICC panels, for the HR, who are the first people right now who are going ahead and catering and attending to the complainant. The good news is they are trained, right? They're already people's person. They know how to go ahead and talk. They do go ahead and take care of the complainants very, very sensitively. Now coming to the ICC panel, right? ICC panels are not set like 10 years, 12 years, and so many years back. Correct. So we as panel members also had undergone the training, and you rightly said, till such time it is not proven, even the respondent is not really to be blatantly blamed, right? So first thing first, we ask them if they're aware of the policies, what needs to be done. Even if they've complained, probably they just know till such angle of complaining. Meenakshi, you rightly said they can appeal it, they can go further, parallel complaints they can make. So these are the things that are reiterated to them. Even for the panel members, the meeting that you take in your normal operational reviews are very different to what you're going ahead and when you're doing an inquiry. You have to be very sensitive. You have to understand what they're trying to say. We don't want it to be a grueling session, right? There's not going to be an outcome where we are going to be earning anything else, but we are going to be earning the trust of the people. And of course, how much ever you might say that it has to be confidential, we make all attempts. There are breaches that happens. We are also penalizing people, right? If there are confidentiality breaches that happens there. So we are making sure that, Akshata, that, with the training, there are actions and executions. So people witness it. They solicitate it, they talk about it, right? So if not even in this company, they go in any other company, they know how Gibbs was doing it while they were there within Gibbs as an employee. So well said. Thank you so much, Akshata. Meenakshi, you can continue. I'm sorry.
No, no, thank you so much. I think I was pretty much bringing in similar inputs, and I really think that very important it is to ensure the culture is in check, and also given your managers and your HRs, this is something that I wanted to just bring forward, that they are also people who are, even though you have your internal committee, you tell everyone this is your IC, you report to them, they will first reach out to your manager. They'll first reach out to their HR person and say that this happened. And a lot of times it is very important to train your HR and manager to work hand in hand with your internal committee so that they bring these cases forward, because there are sometimes these breaches done by managers also. Like in one case I handled, the manager only attached the email to the entire organization senior leadership and forwarded the complaint of somebody to the internal committee. Everyone in the company knew about it, and all the details were publicized by this person in the email, because the manager was not trained in posh. So important it is to train other people and also to identify what is the actual cultural problem. So your IC is not limited to looking at your whether people are handling just posh issues, but also to encourage reporting of complaints by people of different communities, people from different spaces. Like if the issue is of gender discrimination, if there is a lot of rampant boys group, girls group going on, and everyone is fighting with each other, there's a possibility there will be some sexual harassment complaint in future. But in time, a stitch can be made and said that, okay, a stitch in time saves nine. Let's do a gender sensitization training, ensure that everyone is creating safe space, a respectful workplace training so that people are not phobic to each other in different ways. So I think bringing that culture of safety also encourages a lot of reporting. So I, from your inputs on, like, those audits, surveys, ask your employees, are they safe? And it shouldn't be limited to sexual safety, it should be psychological safety. How safe are your employees in your workplace, and how confident do they feel if I work in a happy workplace, if my manager or a very senior member is not treating me right, I will feel safe enough to go and complain to the HR or the internal committee that, hey, I'm dealing with something. I want to go and file a report against this individual, because I think end of the day, an individual does not represent the company, but individuals are the faces of the company. And we really need to be mindful of that, because all these cases that come in public for us to see, it is often the negligence of one person that affects the entire company. So we need to take that away, that power away from individuals, that no, you can't abuse power because the company is larger than any individual that is representing the company or is part of the company. At the same time, everyone is valued. So very important to bring these messages. And thank you so much for all your inputs that have come so far. I think because we are reaching the end of our time today, I would like to finally get some best practices or last words that Akshata, you may have, and then Sakshi, you may have, to kind of close the session. Whatever questions were posted in the chat, I think a lot of it was covered in the discussion we had, and I've also answered to the best of my capability a lot of those questions. So, any last words in that you would want to bring in, Akshata?
Thank you so much. I think it was a very good refresher for me also, Sakshi, a lot of things you shared. Thank you, Meenakshi, for kind of adding on to a lot of places which, kind of helps you when you go back. You're not looking at purely from the training perspective and just looking at that. I think I'm so happy you touched upon the gender sensitive part, because many a times we focus only on posh. I remember a couple of years back, there was one case, and during the investigation, we got to know that this was a false case. It was by a women employee. Then, when we asked her, she said she was going through a workplace harassment for many, many years. She kept reporting it and it was never taken seriously. Then she had no other option. She thought this is the last option. When you call it a posh, I think she will get noticed. It feels sad, but in many cases, that's what in many organizations, I think, posh is given a lot of importance. But in terms of safety and my psychological safety, I think they don't do much, right? Because that also here, because posh, it has to be compliant. They give a lot of, notice for it, but all other things are taken very lightly. So I think we'll have to start looking at as HR people, and also if you're in a leadership team, you should start supporting teams to see how you can do a lot of awareness sessions so that people feel safe. It's a safe place, end of it. Like it shouldn't be only for posh. I think overall, in terms of working conditions, how you can give that comfort to people. Regular checkup, like a couple of things Sakshi mentioned, which they do. I think those all will help you understand if people really feel safe at workplace. I think those also need to be done in addition to the posh awareness sessions. That will help you create a safe place. So that is something I would want to close my, note on. Thank you so much, Meenakshi.
Thank you so much, Akshata, for all your inputs. And Sakshi, any last closing words that you may have?
Right. Very well said. And I think, in my company, and I have most of my experience staying here at Gibbs. Well, all of them focus on enforcing it to the bottom layer of the company. In my company at Gibbs, we have our MD supporting it by and large, right? It comes top down. So I'll tell you this incident where we had a senior leader who was involved, and because it was my first few cases, obviously, I was a little bit hesitant. Our CEO gave us a free hand to do what it takes as per the legal route, right? Do the right stuff, make sure all the policy, the fine prints are followed, to make sure the person who has gone ahead and reported to take any action and every action without his permission, because he will follow and agree to what the POSH committee, the ICC committee is saying. So, with that kind of courage that we are getting from our senior leadership and as senior as our MD CEO, right? To go ahead and advocate it, it's very easy. Now, I did hear Venkat, who had put in a comment, right? There are people from different cultures, divisions, and different cities. Again, at GEBS, we do not have just our presence in Mumbai. We also have at places like Aurangabad, Hyderabad, right? And we are also coming up with a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities. we have it all pervasive, unified across our organization. So we just do not give importance. Okay, it's Mumbai, probably cases will happen here more, so there has to be more importance here. But we have our women who are working 24/7 in our industry, where we are more prone to such kind of incidents, where it asks for more urgent need, more training. And again, yes, training is not for the heck of training, but in real sense. So we are not, and I love this fact with the POSH Act when it says prevention, prohibition, and redressal. The first word that it stresses on is prevention. And that's what we are trying to do because we don't want to be reactive. We don't want to redress it. Okay. We want to mitigate in advance, right? So we have people from Aurangabad who work, the girls work at night, in the evening, sorry. And sometimes it's difficult. It's a tier 2 city, right? But they feel safe here. And these are the outcomes that we already see. We see that when we have the complainants come and talk, we don't have to really coax or encourage the complainant or the respondent to give us the information. They are aware what they're supposed to be talking, so it makes it much easier for us. And again, since we have from Hyderabad team members or our ICC panels, right, they're also selected in the manner that anybody who's complaining or responding can speak in their language. We give them that liberty. They can write in their language, they can speak in their language. We have the external committee member also who will also help us in case if we have any kind of barriers. So I think out and out, we've matured, we've evolved. And I see it is getting more stronger, where people are believing and trusting in us. We don't have any complaints so far that I've seen registered where people are not really satisfied. We do have certain feedback, we take it positively, we go ahead and implement it. We use it for our internal training of the ICC members. Some corrections that we have as a lessons learned from our policies, sorry, from our cases, we embedded into our policies, but that's really helping. That really helps.
So to also bring a conclusive thought process here, it's also to say that there's a long way to go. I think there is a conversation going on in the chat as well around this, that there is a long way to go. We are still, even though we are putting in so much effort on prevention, I think corporates have also reached a next level where we are more focused on prevention. We're doing all these surveillances and digital initiatives, but we also don't have the awareness that every district has a local complaints committee. Every district has a collector that you can reach out to, and letting people know that you have appeal provisions in place. So all of these things. So thank you so much, Akshata and Sakshi, for bringing in best practices so that these can be implemented by people who are actually in different sectors. Now Posh is coming in different industries as well. And I think it's thanks to the efforts that corporates have also put in, that these are the kind of things that we want to bring in. So we always go a little ahead of time to make sure that everyone else is also catching up. So thank you so much for both
I
the
have
input.
one question to HR Madam Akshata. Can
Yes,
I
yes,
ask? Okay.
yes, please.
Madam, I'm a security consultant and trainer and also a professor. Okay. I go around and then I see the places for auditing the locations, auditing the companies. Now, with respect to my comment in chat box, I always feel that the workers in the security, housekeeping, facility management are absolutely unorganized, untrained, unmotivated. They do not know what is even called harassment. They don't even know what is called gender sensitization. So I only request Madam Akshata to deal those cases if she comes across and then advise them properly. Yes, they are available under the POSH Act. They're available for any kind of a support. That is my request.
So thank you so much. I think you beautifully put it. See, they might not know what is harassment, but today for a woman, she knows if there is something wrong that's done to her. Maybe they may you'll just have to tell them, you don't have to, they don't have to come back and tell you it's a sexual harassment. They don't need to use those words at all. Whenever we are dealing with cases where people do not understand these terms, we only understand what has happened with them. We just tell them, tell in your own language. I think those are taken care because
Nice.
today for a woman, to be very, very honest, if there is something that's happening wrong, even if somebody looks at you in a
Correct.
inappropriate way, I think they catch it.
Fully agree with you.
That happens, and I'm happy the kind of work you're doing in terms of inspecting places to see if it is safe. I think that's good. And these people might be unorganized, but
Yeah.
if you see, these people are extremely sensitive. I think if
Correct.
you're able to train them
Correct.
and tell them where to reach out to, I think today there's a fear because they're third party. They're worried that the moment you complain, they'll be out of the job. So the moment you give them that comfort that, you are there to take care, I think you will see a lot of complaints coming up. Today they're scared. They know what is harassment. They know something wrong is happening with them. They know where to go, but they're scared. They don't know that, if they'll be taken
Yeah, yeah.
seriously. That is the thing. So I'm glad you brought it up. So thank you so much for bringing
Right.
it up.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Actually, even now, with the 2023 judgment, Supreme Court has passed a judgment saying that more and more sectors need to comply with POSH.
Yeah.
And around 100 plus, 150 plus, actually 193 was the number as far as I recall. Nodal officers were appointed by Tamil Nadu in different districts. So there is awareness that's stemming now, even housekeeping agencies, especially those which are having a little more presence, are able to bring in POSH.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the session has to happen in some fancy language. That's very well summarized, Rakshita, that it has to be done in a language people understand. Your cases have to be conducted in languages that people understand. So thank you for bringing that input. And to encourage reporting, there is no two ways about it. Even sometimes the POSH cases we get, finally, lastly, are most of the times verbal. They don't give a written complaint. They'll come and
Correct.
say, this happened to me, you
Correct.
know. So it is on the internal committee to make sure that they are feeling safe enough to write a complaint and provide it. And also to break the shame, the barriers that they are facing in reporting. So it's almost like we act like a counselor. We provide EAP counseling services so that employees are feeling more safe to complain, and also to tell them that, hey, it's not your fault. You came up and you are telling this is your power. So if your family is saying you cannot file a complaint, we also need to empower them with those tools. Allow for maybe I had one complainant who was so scared to report, but we convinced her to somehow come and report the case. So she said that I don't want anyone to know. And her cousin was working on the floor. We had to ask her to, come separately and do the proceedings in work hours. And we changed her shift so that people in the household don't get to know that she is even pursuing a POSH complaint. Because if they get to know, they won't let her go to work.
Correct.
So many measures we need to
Yeah,
take. And I guess today we could touch upon some of it.
very
So
true.
thank you so much, Akshita and Sakshi.
And
I
actually,
can't.
just one last thing I had. When you look at the chat box, there are some amazing questions, and these are the need of the hour where you need to address. Since you all keep doing a lot of webinars with ILA, I think you should look at, especially they're talking about third party, employees. I think there a lot of work still needs to be done. I think maybe in some of your future, webinars, you may have to bring in experts who are working with them. It'll be really nice to hear those thoughts, because today in companies like ours, I think we are doing a lot of things good. So it's good to see how, the law kind of supports people from, third party and other outsourced areas. So maybe it'll be good to hear, and I would look forward to attend the webinar and hear more from that. Thank you,
And
Sakshi. Thank you
that's
so
all.
much,
Thank
Thank you
Sakshi.
so much, everyone,
Thank
for
you, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much.
and thank
Thank
you
you,
both the
everyone.
panelists. You've been very, very thorough, and you really laid down some really good practices
Yeah,
here
yeah.
for.
Best practice, they must have brought it up
Yeah,
beautifully, well summarized, comprehensive, and narration is beautiful, both of them.
yeah.
They are
Thank you.
lawyers.
Yeah,
One is
thank
lawyer, one is HR and no HR and with legal, correct?
you.
Anyway, thank you.
Meenakshi, thank you so much. So thank you, everyone, for
Thank you,
joining.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Meenakshi. Thank
everyone.
you, Sakshi.
Thank you for
Thank you
all
so
those who
much.
attended.
Thank you for joining.
Yes.